Um, I want to take this opportunity to introduce a very powerful woman of God. She's very near and dear to my heart. When I was an intern, fresh out of Andrews, she was the first elder at my first church there at Metropolitan in Hyattsville. And I have to let you all know that I was very immature back then. Well, I still am immature now. I was really immature back then, and staff meetings would always get me pinches and stares and all kinds of other things. And mind you, I was a pastor at that time. But she was definitely someone that I would always be able to get encouragement from. She was beyond loving. She was like a mother to me. Let me just tell you a little bit about her. She currently is the General Conference's Women's Ministries Director, a position that you've held now for 2 terms, right? They seem to not be able to get rid of you. This is the 2nd term? 3rd? Good Lord. So she's in charge of women's ministries for the General Conference. Her travels have taken her all over the world. And when I found out that she was actually going to be home during this series, I wanted to beg and plead with her to come and share some of her stories with us this evening. Her husband is here, Pastor Joseph Small. He's here. She is a native of Trinidad and Tobago. She is from Port of Spain in Trinidad. She is a mighty and powerful woman of God. So why don't you all put your hands together and welcome to the stage my mom, Elder Heather Dawn Small. Which side's your good side? Which side? Now pick one. Which side? I'm going to take this.
You're still miserable. You still need some taps behind there.
Yeah. Is it on?
Well, we definitely want to.
Thank you for coming.
I'm glad to be here. How
Coming out on a Sunday evening. Start of the football season, mind you.
I know nothing about that.
Yeah, I know. But as we get started, I just want to sort of ask you, how did you get into women's ministries? How did you get into this job that you have? And then I want you to tell us some of the fantastic stories. I know you've traveled all around the world and met all kinds of people. But just tell us first how you sort of got into this. And you can also greet the people and, say nice things.
Well, first let me bring you greetings from your 90 million brothers and sisters around the Seventh-day Adventist World Church, of which about 12 million are women. So we are a blessing to this church. The way I got into this work, it's purely a God thing. When you go through an experience and you're not sure what's happening, but when you go through it and you look back, it's like you could connect all the dots. That's what happened to me and this. I was working in Trinidad and Tobago as the women's ministries leader at the union office. And I made a trip to the General Conference. I was women, children, and shepherdess. So I made a trip to the General Conference, my first trip.
Which shepherdess? They don't turn.
Well, shepherdess is pastors' wives.
Oh.
In some places, they call them PIMS, pastor,
Nope.
PIMS, P-I-M-S, partners in ministry. Because some, you guys are terrible. I could tell this is Pastor Defoe's church. Because some people don't like the word shepherdess. He's a shepherd and the wife is a shepherdess. They think that's old. But in any case, so working with the pastors' wives was also one of the things that I did. And I went to the General Conference to attend a ministerial training for pastors and pastors' wives. Well, before I got there, I attended a women's retreat in Florida conference. And this was back in 2001. And at the retreat, I went to the ABC on the compound. And when I walked into the ABC, there was a table with a book, and they had all these books on it, the same book, and a big banner and everything. And I thought, wow, this must be a really good book. It was a Prayer of Jabez. It had just come out, and everybody was talking about it. And I picked up this little book, and I looked at it, and I thought, this book looks good. I'm going to buy it. But when I looked at the price, I think it was $7.99. Well, multiply that by 6 into Trinidad dollars. I thought, nah, I can't afford a book. That, for such a little book, that's too much money. So I put it down. went up to the GC for the ministerial retreat, and went to visit the ABC in Potomac there. What should I see when I enter? The same book. So I picked it up again, and I knew I should buy it, but I kept thinking the exchange rate. How do I justify this expensive book? Put it back down. The night the ministerial retreat ended, we had a banquet, and I had made a few friends while I was there. And when I was leaving, this one lady came up to me and she said, she followed me out. She said, Heather Dawn, Heather Dawn. And I said, yes. She said, I have a gift for you to take with you. And it was the book.
Wow.
So I thought, God really wants me to have this book. So on the way back, my flight was passing through Puerto Rico, and I had a few hours layover. I read that book twice on my journey home.
Wow.
I had marked up that book. I was so excited about that book. I got to Trinidad. I came off the plane, got my luggage, met my husband, and the first thing I said to him was, honey, I have to tell you about this book. And he said, yeah, I missed you too. And I said, yeah, I love you, but let me tell you about this book. And so I talked about it all the way home. And then I said, let's do the 30-day challenge in it. You know, he challenges you to pray for 30 days. Pray the prayer of Jabez for 30 days. And so we did it.
Yeah.
And on was it day 28 or 27, honey? Around there. 28, I got a call I was in Curacao on a trip for the union.
That's a boring place.
And I got a call. Yeah, it's
I went on
really-
vacation by mistake one
Yeah,
time.
well, it's not boring, it's just different.
Boring.
But I got a call from the GC Women's Ministries director. She had called my office and they gave her the phone number in Curacao where I was staying. She called to ask me to apply for the job of associate director for women's ministries.
Wow.
And I came home and I told him, and I said, I'm not going to apply for that job. They've already got somebody. And he said, no, you need to apply. And we did, and the rest is history. You know, and again, it was not something I was looking for. It was something I asked. But it was God, you know, the prayer, Lord, enlarge our territory. And boy, did he enlarge it. I mean, I went from the swimming pool into an ocean.
Yeah.
And it was shock,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah. And I could look back and I could see all the way he led to that point.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, share some things with us from your travels. I know that you're never home, so you must be always someplace else. Every time I ask about where you are, you're always in some exotic or some strange place that I've never
You know,
heard
you
of.
people think that traveling the world is really exotic. Not when you're working. There are so many countries that I go to that I see the airport, the hotel, the church, back to the, you know, back and forth, and I never get to see anything in the country. It has to be a country that I really am interested in. Like when I went to Israel, I said, okay, guys, I'll do all the work you want me to, but I'm taking a few extra days because I want to see something in Israel.
Yeah.
But it's not a glamorous job. It is a ministry. It really is a ministry. You've got to be called to do work like this because you give up so much and you experience so much. My husband is the one who had to teach me how to detach myself from the many problems that I would meet when I travel, when my sisters come and come for some counseling. I remember one of my most traumatic experiences that I cried for days after I came home. I was in South Africa at a women's congress. It was my first time to South Africa, and it was still in those days when everybody was kind of separate. So I was at a all black women's retreat one weekend, and then I was at a colored retreat the next weekend. And the white population didn't have retreats, so they allowed me to come to one of their churches and speak to them. So it was all separated. It was really, really bad back then. But I was at the black retreat, and the Sunday, you know, when everything was over, there were ladies coming talking to me. There was this one young lady who came with a baby, and I love babies, so I immediately reached out, took the baby, maybe about 6 or 7 months old, and I was just kissing the baby and patting it. And she was telling me her story, and her story was basically this. Her husband had just died of AIDS a few weeks ago. He had been unfaithful, contracted HIV/AIDS. She had it. She didn't have much time to live. She knew she was going to die. And I thought she was going to ask me to pray for her. And her thing to me was, Sister Small, would you take my baby? what do you say? You know, I mean, I had already fallen in love with this baby. If there was any way I could have brought that baby back, that baby was coming back. But, you know, good sense had to step in. And I realized, okay, we need to do something to help her, because obviously the big thing on her mind is, what's going to happen to my baby when I die? She had no other children. This was their first child. And so I called for the women's ministries leader, and I said, there must be some social workers here or some nurses. Can we get someone to come? And they did find a social worker, and she came. And about 7, 8 months later, the director wrote me to tell me that how the mother had died, but they had found a home for the baby before she died.
Yeah.
And the family actually took the mother and the baby into their home
Wow.
to live. So she was able to see the kind of home her baby would have been brought up in. And I thought that was wonderful. So things like that happen,
Yeah.
and they're life-changing moments, and those kind of things happen pretty often.
Wow.
Yeah, so, yeah, and then there's the lighter side of it. Going to places, I remember I told my husband, going to a place like Israel, the first time I went to Israel. I'd never been to Israel before, but before I go to a new country, I tend to do research. You know, you want to find out about the culture. You don't want to make any mistakes when you go in the culture. You want to know a little of the history and the background. And I knew that there were many different groups of Jews
Yeah.
in Israel. And I also knew that Israel was a very secular country, that everybody wasn't a Jew. It's sort of like being a Catholic. You know, you're born a Catholic or you're born a Muslim, but you may not ever, you know, after you grow big, you never go to church, but you're still considered that. Well, Jews are considered Jews whether they go to church, yes or no, or synagogue. But on my trip there the first time, I'm leaving London
Yeah.
in the plane to go to Israel, and we get in the plane. It was a huge British Airways plane, you know, the ones where you have 2 seats, 5 seats, 2 seats. And I was at the end of the 5-seat row. And, no, I was the second in, I'm sorry. And there was an Orthodox Jew guy who was supposed to be sitting next to me. And you could tell them because, you know, they've got the little curls hanging down their faces, and they're all in black or gray or white. Those are the 3 colors. And there were a number of them on the plane. So you get on the plane, and you know what happens when you get on a plane? You get in your seat, and then they tell you, you know, the doors are going to be closed, whatever. But when you're going to Israel, it's not just the doors are going to be closed. It's, we're going to have prayer time. You know, we're going to allow those who are Orthodox Jewish male to do their prayers. So they take out their prayer shawls, they put that little box around their head, they wrap it on their arms, they pull up their sleeves, wrap it on their arms, and they go through a whole prayer ritual while the rest of us sit there. And then he was right there, standing up in the passageway, and then it was time to sit down, and the man wouldn't sit down. And he kept walking up and down the aisle, and everybody else was sitting down. And the air hostess came to him and said, you know, you need to sit down because, you know, the pilot needs to take off. No, he said, I can't sit down. And she said, but you need to. And I looked at him, and of course, I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what the problem is. Maybe he's got a racial problem. That's what came into my mind. And so I thought, well, I took some cushions, you know, the little pillows they give you, and I put 2 of them there between me. And I thought, okay, maybe if he knows that I won't touch him, he'll be okay. And I kind of leaned over this way. No, he wasn't going to sit down. Finally, she got the captain or whoever's co-pilot, whatever, came out and said to him, you know, sir, you're delaying the plane. You need to sit down. Why can't you sit down? And he turned to him and he said, well, I don't know if she's unclean. And I thought, really? You know, poor guy, he has no idea what's going on with me. No, I'm not. But any case, and he wouldn't sit there. They had to find someone else
Wow.
to change places with him before he would sit down, because as far as he was concerned, I could be unclean. And as a Orthodox Jew, he'd have to go through all this ritual cleansing before he could be made clean again. And what was so nice was a Jewish lady in the row, the seat just outside, leaned over and apologized to me. She said, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I hope you don't feel badly, but some of us Jews just really think in strange ways. And I said, no, it's fine, but I'm just glad I knew what it was,
Yeah.
you know? And that same trip, when I was leaving Israel, see, God and I made a deal. back in those days, I'm saying back in those days like if it's so long ago,
Yeah.
but you know how technology has really increased over the past 10 years and more. We didn't have cell phones to travel with. Like now, my cell phone that I use here is a cell phone that I use in every country that I travel. But we didn't have that. You had what was called, it was a special AT&T phone that you could, a satellite phone.
Right.
Well, I didn't have it with me on that trip, and Joe and I had, because I was going to be there for 7 days, 7 or 8 days, I was leaving on the 8th day. We kind of prayed because I was scared about going to Israel. There was still a lot of bombs going off there, and it wasn't safe. But we prayed about it and talked to my dad, and my dad said to me, you know, God didn't send you to serve some of the world. He sent you to serve all of the world. And that kind of said to me, okay, I'm going on this trip. But I made a deal with God, and I don't know if he even took on my deal, but this is what I said to God. I said, God, for the 7 days that I'm there, no bombs. Please, no bombs. So on the day I'm leaving, I'm in my room getting ready to come down. A bomb went off 2 streets away.
Wow.
And that was my cue that I knew this was the day I was supposed to leave.
Yeah.
And it was a huge noise. I mean, it rocked the hotel. I was just so scared. But anyway, so we get to the airport. We're on the plane.
Yeah.
And this man, another Orthodox Jew, sits in front of me now. He's on a seat in front of me. And he takes out this huge transparent plastic bag, puts it over his head, tucks it into his thing, and he's in there. The whole of his body is in there.
How does he breathe?
Well, this is the thing, because after a while it begins to mist over. And the air hostesses are getting frantic. Now, let me tell you the story behind it. The story behind it was somebody had written a story in the newspaper that when British Airways took off, their flight plan was over a cemetery, which meant that the fumes of the decaying people would permeate the plane and make you unclean as an Orthodox Jew. And so the only way he could prevent that was to put himself in a plastic bag. Now, while I was there, British Airways took out a whole page ad saying that their flight path was not over any cemetery.
Wow.
But this guy didn't believe it. So he's inside there, and the air hostess is frantic, telling him, "So you can't do this. You can't do this." And he's in there saying, "No, no, tell the pilot take off." So here am I thinking, I've got to get out of Israel. I haven't spoken to my husband in 8 days.
Yeah.
I've got to leave today because the bomb went off. And this idiot, this man is going to make me stay here because he's going to die on the plane. And then now the pilot really came out, and the pilot was really upset. The pilot was upset, and he said to him, "You can't," and all. At this point, we're not even seeing this man in this bag because it's all misted over. And we're just hearing this voice saying, "No, take off the plane, take off the plane. Let the plane take off. I'm not coming out." And what the pilot finally did was he got another Orthodox Jew on the plane who came to him, ripped open the plastic bag, shook him by his shoulders, and said something in Hebrew to him. And the man was, I'm telling you, he was sweating, he was soaking, he was, I don't even know if he was conscious. The man just shook him and then the plane took off. And you know, it really gave me an insight into people who are traditional Jews and how serious their religious beliefs are to them. And I remember thinking on the flight, do I take my beliefs as a Christian that seriously? Am I that committed? I mean, this man was willing to die for what he believed in.
Yeah.
Am I that committed to what I believe that I would die for it? And it really got me thinking about what I believe. And if I live what I believe, if I'd live it to that extreme.
Wow.
You know, so, yeah. There are a zillion things that happen as we travel, and we learn.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, when you say that, give me an experience that you've had that has, in your opinion, taught you the most.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you told me to ask you anything.
I know you told me to ask you. There's so many. Okay, wow.
Will you give us a couple?
Yeah. Let me tell you one that happened a few years ago to me. I went to Romania, in women's ministries, we are trying to get our sisters in the churches to focus on evangelism, not just by word and Bible study and that sort of thing, but through action.
Yeah.
The world theme used to be touch the world. So for women's ministries, it was touch a heart. It was tell the world. And so in women's ministries, we said, no, we want to touch a heart and tell the world.
Yeah.
Because women, you know, we can do that kind of touchy-feely thing.
Me too. I could do it too.
Okay. I believe you. But you shouldn't do it. Well, in any case, so we were promoting this throughout the world and getting women to reach out to other women in difficult situations. And I went to Romania, and the women in the city of Bucharest were sharing with me one ministry that they had started to reach out to people who didn't look like them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's our challenge when it comes to outreach. It's reaching out to people who don't look like us, don't act like us, don't believe like us. We tend to reach out to people who look like us. And that's why we're very good at bringing people from other churches, from other Christian churches into our church.
Right.
But not so good at bringing people who are Muslim and Buddhist and Hindu and all these other things. Well, they decided they were going to reach out to the prostitutes in downtown Bucharest.
Wow.
I've never heard of that before. And they said, Sister Small, we want to share with you what we do. I didn't have the opportunity to go with them, but they did tell me. And these were women in their 40s, 50s, 60s who were doing this. They would go downtown every night, Sunday, Monday, Friday night, didn't make a difference. They went downtown with little packages. They would have sandwiches, bottled water, condoms, and a couple of them were nurses, so they would have little medical supplies. Because prostitutes, most times, aren't looked after very well. And all the pimp, now we're really with the pimp, all he really cares about is the money he can make.
Yeah.
And so they would minister to these women on the street. And they would give them these little packages, they would give them something to eat. And the women were so thankful for them, and I saw some of the various pictures. But then I said, well, what do you do if one of the women says, well, I want to get out of this? They said, oh, we've had quite a few of them who've told us that. So I said, well, what do you do with them? We take them home.
Wow.
I said, you take them home? They said, well, what else are we going to do? They have no place to go. They can't go back to their families. We take them to our home. And when we take them home, we clean them up, we take them to the doctor, we bring them to church with us, and they get baptized. I mean, I was stunned at that level of buy-in, that level of personal sacrifice in order to save a soul. See, I don't see that very many places.
Right.
I certainly have never seen it here in the United States, which is sad to say, but it's true. And I'm not saying nobody's done it, but it's just that we don't do that sort of thing. You're going to bring a prostitute in your home, supposing she has a disease, supposing this. That's the way most of us would think. You know, my clean home. But these women didn't care. This was a soul to be saved.
Yeah.
So that really had a huge impact on me. Another place that I think that has really impacted me in ministry is a country like India.
Yeah.
India is a unique country when it comes to culture and lifestyle. There are two extreme lifestyles in India. There's the fabulously rich and the extremely poor.
Wow.
The middle class in India is almost non-existent. You're either up there or down there. And the first time I went to India, I went to Calcutta, and I was blown away with the amount of poverty that I saw. Not just a person who was begging here and a person who was begging here. Hordes of people who were begging. And I remember the first time they took me out on the street, they said to me, do not give anything, any money to any beggar.
Wow.
And I said, really? I said, you know, I've seen some of them through the window of the taxi or through the car. They look like they said, don't do it. But they didn't tell me why. So we were walking in the street. I was going to buy a sari. And there was this woman I mean, she just looked so pitiful, and she had a baby in her arm. And the baby must have been at least 2 years or something, but the baby's head was bobbing. They were both malnourished, what's the word? Emaciated. And I was like, I want to give them something. And so I put my hand in my purse, because they follow you. And everywhere you go, they can't go into the stores, but they'll wait outside the store until you come out. And all she kept saying was, Mem Sabib, 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 Mem Sabib. And I was like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I'm going to give this woman some money for herself and the child. And I reach in my pocket, into my bag, and I'm looking down in my bag, and I look up. And when I took the money out of my bag, when I look up, there are like 40 people out there, 40 beggars.
Wow.
I'm serious. Then I understood why they told me don't give to anybody. Because they come out of the woodwork. They just, and now I'm looking at, and I'm thinking, I don't have enough money to give to these people. So what am I going to do? But I gave her something. But they followed us. Finally, we had to cut our shopping short. Because they followed us everywhere. There's just this huge group. So the poverty in India is really devastating.
Yeah.
And literacy is one of the big challenges that people face. And so in women's ministries, again, because we want to help people where the need is. I mean, it's okay telling you about Jesus, but if you can't read your Bible and you can't, sing a hymn, whatever it is. So we have a lot of literacy training classes in the villages. And they take us on one trip that I went. They took us to the villages where we could actually see what they were doing. And I'm talking about little villages.
Yeah.
And where the class was held on the dirt road. So the road, which a car hardly passes on, is where the classroom is. And everybody's sitting down with their little slate board. I don't know if any of you remember a slate board. I mean, that's so far back. With a little charcoal or whatever it was, chalk, whatever it was, you'd write on the slate board. That's what they had writing on.
Yeah.
But these women were so happy that they could write their name, so they told them, write their name on the board, and I would come around and look at it. I mean, the look on these women's faces, that they could write their name, and then they had them doing other things, and they were bringing the boards for me to correct.
Wow.
I don't speak Hindi. I don't even know what, I was just checking, like if I knew everything was right. Oh, this is wonderful, wonderful, and they were happy. But there was this one lady who had gone through the program. She was from another village. And I've got to share with you this story because I want you to see how something like this changes a person's life. She never knew how to read her entire life. She was a girl child. Now, understand something. In India, a girl child is not really considered important. India has something called son preference, daughter neglect. You see, a son brings his wife into the house, but the daughter goes into her husband's home. So she benefits the husband's family, not her own family. So a family doesn't want too many girls. So if there's a girl child born, what they do is, the minute the mother is in labor and the baby comes out and they see it's a girl, they kill it instantly. Right then and there. If it's a boy, they let it live. They will keep maybe 2 girl children in the family, but that's it. Any more, they're going to kill it at birth. So what the Indian government started doing about 5-6 years ago is they started paying parents money. If you have a girl child, we will give you so much rupees. Her first day of school, we'll give you so much rupees. Her first day of high school, we'll give you so many rupees. Her first day of college, we'll give you some. Really paying the families to keep these girls alive and to get them educated. So we're in this little village, and these other ladies, some of them came from the other village, and the translator was sharing with me this particular woman's story. In the other village, the land was owned by a very wealthy man, and he had a land supervisor, because he didn't live there. He lived in the city. So he had a man who was supervising all his land and everything that was grown there. And the villagers worked on the land, and they were paid every week. And so she's saying that every week they would line up at a table, and the man would tell them, this is your name, put your X here. because none of them could read, put their X, and he'd pay them the rupees.
Wow.
But then we started doing literacy classes in that particular village, and some of them learned to read, including this woman. So now she could count. She knew how to read her name. She knew numbers, and she knew basic reading.
Yeah.
And she's in the line one Friday to get paid. She gets to the top of the line. The supervisor doesn't know that she could read. Oh, by the way, the owner of the land had come to visit. So the supervisor doesn't know she could read. And he says to put your X there. And she says, she is thinking to herself, I'm going to write my name and show him. I don't need to put an X anymore. And as she looks down, she looks at the number of rupees on the page. And she looks at the number in her hand.
Wow.
And she realizes that he's paying her half of what is on the paper. This guy had been ripping off everyone half of their salary because nobody could read. So she starts to make a big fuss. She calls the person who just went before her, come here, let me see how much you got paid.
Yeah.
And she counts it, she looks for their name and she sees it. And so now a big uproar starts because they're ready to kill him. And somebody goes and calls the man who owns the land, and he comes and he says, what's going on? And so she explains to him. And he says to her, you can read?
Wow.
Because he knows these villagers can't read. She says, yes, I could read. I could read numbers. I could read my name. I could read other things. And he turns to the man who was his supervisor, and he says, what did you do with the money? Have you been keeping it for me? And the man says, no. So, of course, he goes to jail.
Yeah.
And the landowner hires the woman to be the supervisor.
Wow.
Amazing. Amazing. And so she comes to this village where we were to encourage the people. Learn to read because you'll get a better job if you learn to read, you know. And she has been baptized and she's in the church.
Yeah.
But it's a life-changing something. It's not just telling people about Jesus is not just teaching them that Jesus died for them. Because if you can't help them change their life,
Yeah.
the life they're living, the abuse that they're living in, the poverty that they're living in, whatever it is, if you can't make a difference there, then what have you done for them? You've given them Jesus, but you've left them hungry? I don't think that's what Jesus would want us to do. So in our department, we really encourage our women, and I'm encouraging you here in the church. Evangelism is much more than a good sermon. It's more than a Bible study. It's first reaching that person at their point of pain, at their point of need. And then, through your actions, they get to see Jesus first. So that when you start sharing with them Jesus, they're ready to accept this God because he's made a difference in their life through you.
Amen.
So
Praise God. Come on, put your hands together. And let's thank Elder Small. Is there anything else you want to share with us?
there's so many things I could share with you. I don't want to bore you to death, so that's fine.
Well, good, good. Well, since we have you here, why don't you pray for us?
Sure.
Perhaps also there's, our women's ministries leader is not here today, but perhaps maybe we can get on your calendar for next year.
Oh, I'd love to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We might as well use our relationship to my benefit. Come on, aren't you glad
I'll
to?
do it for you.
Thank you.
He's
Aren't
my
you
son.
glad?
I'll do it for him.
Elder Small, come on and pray for us.
Sure. Father, thank you so much for the time that we've been able to spend together in this fellowship. Thank you for the experiences in life that you've given me to share. But thank you even more for all our experiences. Because we go through these different things, whether it's good or bad, so that we have a story to tell of what you have done in our lives. Lord, help us to realize that we need to tell the world about you, but we need to show the world Jesus. We need the world to feel your touch and experience the love that you have given to us. Help us to be practical when we talk about evangelism. Help us to be real in when we share our testimonies. Help us to be just people, not perfect Christians, because we're not. And the people who we're reaching are not perfect, and they don't live perfect lives. And that's why we don't have perfect lives, so that we can connect, we can share, we can touch. Thank you so much for the work that you have called each of us to do for you. We love you, Lord, and I pray that you continue to bless my son David as he's here in this church. Bless the members and the leadership, and may they make a difference in this community. May this church make a difference, because Jesus is here and he lives and indwells in his people. And when you come, may we rejoice with you. Not only us, but people who've lived in this area who said, I'm here because your church was here. Thank you, Lord, for the blessing that you have given us. And we give you the honor and the praise in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. I just want to tell you what's coming on Wednesday. On Wednesday night, of course, there'll be serving supper starting at 6:15. So make sure if you're coming from work or if you're just coming for free food that you come Wednesday night at 6:15. Come earlier, please. I'm begging you so that we can start directly on time. We're going to close that food line on Wednesday directly at 6:50. We have a special guest coming to talk with us from the International Justice Mission. His name is Ed Downing. His presentation title is Until Everyone is Free. He's coming to talk to us and share experiences on sex trafficking and modern day slavery. Listen, you don't want to miss it. I don't want you to come by yourself. I want you to bring somebody else with you. We're going to start directly on time. We may run a little bit over on Wednesday night because it's going to be so powerful. I want you to come out. I want you to make sure that you bring somebody with you. Have safe travels going home, and I'll see you on Wednesday night. Elder Small will be down here in the front for about a good 5 minutes. If you'd like to come and talk to her or shake her hand and share with her the impact of her story on your life, by all means, she'll be down front to do it. God bless you. I love you. See you Wednesday night.